Hey everyone, my name is Yashasvi Sharma and today we'll be going over how to write the literature review. So before I tell you how to write the literature review, we need to go into actually what it is. So the literature review basically should get scoliosis from carrying your entire research paper. It is the very foundation of your paper as it sets the stage and context upon which you will develop your research question, your research method, and also your results and greater discussion and broader implications. So it sets the stage for a very important aspect of your paper and also helps the audience to gain a better understanding of what your topic is actually focusing on. So the literature review is, like I said before, the very foundation of your paper. So I like to think of the literature review as a stage. We have a stage for the actors and actresses of a musical or play to act and perform their dialogue upon. So the stage kind of represents the literature review in the sense that it provides the scene for where your research kind of fits into the context of which your scholarly gap fits into, and the actors, actresses, and dialogue are all the remaining parts of your paper, such as the methods, discussion, and greater implications. So to describe the literature review, I like to think of it as a house party. Imagine you attend a house party and there's multiple different rooms with multiple different people. Multiple rooms will be saying one thing over another. So maybe one room you learned about one aspect of your topic, and the other one, so like for example, if your topic is on bioterrorism, maybe one room talked about the economic implications of this war crime, maybe another room talked about the social implications of this war crime, and so on and so forth. And then you go home that night and you think about what things had not been already said in the discussion, and that's what you choose to write your paper on. The difference between seminar and research is that in research you're actively trying to identify where the gap in knowledge exists, and your job is to fill that gap. With seminar, you're essentially just reiterating sources from a specific perspective that you created. So seminar is more about categorizing sources into different types of media and different summaries and what they're saying in relation to your topic. But research is actually introducing new ideas to the field and introducing and sparking a greater discussion on your specific topic. So when you're setting your scholarly gap in your literature review at the very end, you basically need to distinctly point out to the audience and to the graders what exactly it is that you're doing. So from the scene from Simba, the guy is essentially raising his cub in the air because he's really excited about, this kid. And that's what you should be doing in your literature review as well. So at the end, when you're mentioning your scholarly gap, you should make it really clear wherein your gap is filling in the research, and how your gap and ultimately this paper contributes to the greater discussion behind this topic as well. So don't make your gap something that's obvious or already very known in the field. This is not the point of the gap. The gap needs to be something that is not necessarily as talked about or hasn't been investigated at all in your field of research. So don't be like this guy here and say that a butterfly is a bird when it clearly isn't. Make sure that your gap is obvious to the graders, but also make sure it's something that wasn't already stated in your literature review and wasn't something you found when completing the initial research and background investigation process. So let's go into my example. So my specific research topic was exploring neurofeedback, which is a type of epilepsy treatment, and I wanted to see if it could be applied to a specific type of epilepsy, which is my gap. So my first source kind of focused on what exactly the feedback is, what exactly the treatment was, and this is really important for me to build that context because my topic isn't something that a common layperson or just any individual would just know off the top of their head. So it's important for me to take the literature and to take this time to explain what exactly it is I'm doing, and also why this matters, which is something in the literature review will vary based on your topic, but if you typically have a more nuanced or more complex topic, it is more advised that you have a longer and more detailed literature review. So when I was introducing the source, I talked about opening a new discussion on a potential new treatment, and then I also cited my evidence from the research in this teal color right here. And also when you're introducing sources, you have to make sure they're in conversation with one another. So you have to use comparative language. So maybe you can say, on the other hand, source B said this, but source A said this. Your sources need to essentially flow with each other in a greater discussion. So pretend that you went to the house party and you can say, well, in room 1 I saw this, but in room 2 I heard about this. So there's many different things that you can talk about here, but this is kind of how the general structure when it comes to introducing each individual source. You can have up to around 3 to 5 key sources, but try to make sure they cover a broad scope of your topic to be able to set the context for your graders and also your audience as well. So as you can see here, I also talked about an existing gap that took place before the publishing of a specific study, and then I also talked about how the results are statistically significant. So there's really a lot of ways to approach this, but the general format is to firstly introduce what gap your source is filling, and then also the evidence that you're specifically citing from the source. And then at the end of the literature review, you'll be talking about what gap you're filling, and then the rest of your paper will be filling that gap, hopefully. So when you introduce a scholarly gap, you need to kind of do a call to problem or call to action. So I talked about how epilepsy diagnoses are only on the rise, so we need to have more treatments and more holistic options available to all populations and all individuals. So it's important for us to explore new treatments on the horizon. So I talked about given the ever increasing rate of epilepsy diagnoses and so on and so forth. So basically your scholarly gap should be kind of something that is a problem or something that needs solving in society within your specific topic, or something that needs further investigation on. But either way, if your topic is focusing more on humanitarian or community-based efforts, it is so important to have a call to action and talk about how exactly your topic and your research paper will help constituents later on. So think of this as like Shark Tank. You're basically pitching your research topic to the graders, and you're telling them why your gap is super important. When you have a new business model, you don't want to have a business that is the same thing as another business, or solves an issue that is already being solved, which is why you don't want your research grader to say that they're out. And just like people on Shark Tank, you need to make sure you appeal to your audience by making it clear and also talking about the specific gap in society this fills. So a correct example, this paper was on the experience researching fear of insects between two different age groups. So one big thing is that the researcher pointed out is that their study examined this theory with two different age groups that were separated by developmental gap, which is the gap, because many different studies actually didn't focus on, they had very narrow age groups, which is why, and you can see here that they explicitly stated how their study was uniquely significant because it's a combination of all topics surrounding insect fear, which is really important because they're talking about how exactly their paper is bringing new language and new discussions to the topic. So when you're writing your literature review, make sure to use explicit language and make sure to talk about specifically, and it's okay to directly say out your research gap, and it's actually preferred that way so it's clear to your graders. If you want to convey something, you need to be able to be concise and clear with your graders, because the last thing you want to do is confuse them. I hope you found this video helpful on writing the literature review, and have a wonderful day. Please be sure to peer review your literature reviews and have fun throughout the research process. Thank you.